Houston, we have a problem. So essentially, I got the brakes finished up on this car, and I was going through the braking in process, but I noticed that something was weird. I heard a little bit of excess noise from this rear wheel, and I noticed that it seemed like it was dragging a little, and you can see like there's these heat marks already, whereas all the other ones don't look that way at all. They barely have any marks on them at all because I barely drove it. Like that rotor right there, perfectly fine. There's no heat marking or anything. I'm pretty sure this caliper was sticking. I took our pins out and greased them, of course, and got them cleaned up. They were not in good shape, and the ones that were in here were practically seized. So I wire brushed them and everything, threw grease in, and threw it back together. But after taking it back apart, I noticed that the pins were still seeming to like hang up. And it's weird because these rubber things go right through the caliper, and the pin goes through the rubber rather than like through the metal like a normal guide pin would. I've never seen anything like this, but the rubber on these is super like corroded and old, and the grease just was not doing anything. I really needed to get new hardware, so I just went ahead and did that. Got all new stuff here from Napa. I got a brand new guide pin kit right here. Comes with our 2 new little sleeve pins and new bolts as well. I also got this new boot kit as well. It comes with boots for both sides, so I'll have spare hardware and everything for the other side just in case. The other side is actually a newer caliper that I threw on like a couple years ago, so we shall see. The only other thing that could be an issue is our brake hose. I know these brake hoses in the rear are pretty sensitive, and it could have gotten a little bit pinched or something. It doesn't take much, it seems like, to get the insides of them to collapse. Fingers crossed that just these pins will take care of it because they were locking up pretty bad.
20 minutes later.
And while I was at it, I went ahead and took the front wheel off and checked on our belts because they've been tripping a lot. Specifically, I believe our alternator belt. And after closely inspecting them both, they both seem fine. There's nothing like a notch out of them, or they don't look worn or anything like that, weirdly. The alternator belt did seem a little bit on the loose side. I could have just not tightened it up enough before when we had everything apart to do the timing. And we got a lot of moisture on it that one time. It just happened to make it squeak and stuff and slip. So I went ahead and snugged the belt up a little bit. It feels pretty much equal to the other belt, which is usually what I go for. I don't want to over tighten it, of course. So I'm a little bit paranoid, and I usually don't tighten them enough, but it's looking good right now. So just gotta throw this wheel back on, and we can take this thing out for yet another test run. Still one of our belts is squeaking. There's a quick way we can try to figure out if it's maybe our other belt though. All it took was the tiniest little squirt of this stuff to completely silent that belt. So it's our other belt, this belt right here. Not our alternator belt, at least from what I'm seeing from that. I don't remember when I replaced the bolt. That one might be even older than the alternator belt, so I could need to throw a new one on, but it looked okay when I looked it over briefly. Okay, so my belt sounds like crap, but guys, listen really closely for a ticking sound. You guys hear that? Sounds like it's coming from the rear right. It definitely varies by speed. Could that be? Could the heat shroud be bent? That wouldn't make any sense though. It's a very uniform ticking sound. Hey, you know what I do know? This is a cool photo op, so even though the car is like got issues, I'm gonna still park here and get a picture. Okay, so drove a little further, and I kept like pulling the e-brake up and riding it while I was driving, and stopped and started a couple times like that, like by using the e-brake just to kind of wear the shoes in a little, and I hear nothing now. The sound just disappeared, and I don't really know, maybe something was just stuck in the e-brake and now it's fine, but this is whack. Alright guys, we're back out here on a new day. We got the PTGT pulled back inside, and we got a couple of things that I want to get done. I did finally go ahead and just buy a new Napa belt, 401 serpentine belt that keeps chirping and making a ton of noise and driving me up the wall. I'm gonna throw this on. I'm also going to try to adapt our belt shroud back onto the car just to try to protect it a little better and hopefully not have this issue for a very long time. The belt that's on this car is at least 4 years old. I finally did the math. Pretty sure it's like 4+ years old. So, I mean, it could be getting a little dried out by now, but I'm just gonna throw a new one on. It's worth 20 bucks to me to have it not freaking chirp like that anymore. Also, I had a lot of you guys comment and send me some DMs and stuff about the O2 sensor thing. I mentioned it in the last video, but we keep getting a check engine light for our secondary, like after the cat O2 sensor, and that's been keeping me from taking this car in to get inspected and everything. Other than that, it's perfect, but check engine light keeps coming on, and it's on right now for it. But a lot of you guys said I could try to just simply clean it with some carburetor cleaner type of stuff and blow it out with some compressed air, make sure it's perfectly clean, throw it back in and see if the code stays off a while. Worst scenario, I have to buy one. I was honestly planning to go buy one when I went down to get this belt, but we'll try that for now. It might save me a few bucks and get me through inspection, and then we can worry about it when we install our downpipe.
F in the chat, boys. I tried my best to get the oxygen sensor out just now, but it's gonna be a big pain. I need more tools than what I have right now. I tried using a 7/8 open-end wrench to try to get on the end of that sensor, but it was simply not enough, and I couldn't get it on there right. I couldn't get enough leverage on it. I think what I'm gonna have to do is get an O2 sensor socket or something, or maybe even just take an old 7/8 or whatever metric socket it is and cut a slit in it for the wire. A lot of people do that. It's a little trick to make a socket that will work on something like this, so we shall see. I might try to do either one of those things, but for right now I'm gonna go ahead and give up on that. I have to get a socket in the next couple days and hopefully come back up in here and figure this all out and try the cleaning trick if I have to.
One last thing that I want to do today is try to reinstall a belt shroud on this thing. As you guys know, stock these cars have a little shroud here, as you can see, that fits up over the belts and stuff and on this side of the motor. They don't have a full under tray like a lot of cars do. It's just this little thing, and I usually leave them off because they suck. They're impossible to get to fit on correctly, and there's always pins missing in them, and they hang low. The one on this car, actually, this one was hanging for a long time because it didn't have the correct pins. It was kind of bent, so if it didn't have all the pins in it, it wouldn't stay up, and I hate the way they look hanging under the car, so I took it off. This belt squeak issue got me thinking maybe I should try to fit it back on, so that's what I'm going to try to do. I got a couple of the self-tapping screws and some plastic pins laying around from some other stuff that should work, so let's see if we can get this thing to stay up under there. I think I got it in there good this time. I actually drilled a new hole for our pin back here so that it would push up on this a little more and kind of even it out. I ended up using a zip tie here because there was no place to put a pin there. And I put two of our bolts up in here to kind of line it up, and it works pretty good. Our duct here lines up, which I forgot. There's just like a cooling duct down here that's functional. I guess it is supposed to help cool the brakes or something. I'm pretty sure there's supposed to be a little piece of plastic on this side too. I have no clue. I don't think that was even in the car when I bought it. I might have a spare one around here somewhere, but it's something I should figure out because that's kind of cool. It's literally like functional brake duct cooling area things. I have no clue what I just said, but you guys hopefully know what I mean. Hopefully our belt will stay protected now. All right, she's back on the ground. No more squeaks. Well, you know what? It's now that we got the belt shroud on, we might as well take her for a quick spin now that she's not squeaking. Yeah, baby. Alright guys, fast forward a while later. I don't remember how long it's been, but I got sidetracked by some other projects. Had to take a slight break from the GT, but a couple days later we're back at it. We're trying to get the O2 sensor replaced, which I will update you guys on later, but drove the car a little bit and put a couple miles on it just to make sure everything was good to go and to finish our braking period with the brakes. But the problem is that this brake started making noise and ticking again like it did earlier in the video. Finally today I decided to jack the back of the car up before we continue with our O2 sensor and try to figure it out. If you guys listen closely, just spinning this by hand, you can hear the ticking sound in there. I don't know if the camera's even gonna pick it up. It was louder before, but it's gotten slightly quieter, and it's definitely the same sound that we've been hearing. It's within, I believe, the e-brake, because it doesn't sound like it's coming from the caliper at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and unbolt our caliper and take it apart and see what we can find and hopefully resolve this once and for all. And we figured it out, boys. So, there's this little pin thing here that comes through the e-brake shoe. As you guys know, it comes through, and then this little pin here locks onto it right here. And it's not here on this side, and I probably didn't twist it enough to lock it into place, and this little spring clip thing actually spun around and got caught up here, and that's probably what was making some noise. Yep, that was it. Look at part of it has like completely worn away there. That's definitely what we heard making that noise. It was touching everything up in here. It's definitely our problem, and I'm gonna have to figure something out to hold that in place. I don't know, we'll figure it out. Alright, and fast forward a few hours later, and I went to Napa and picked this up. This is a whole rear e-brake hardware kit, I guess you would call it. It comes with literally all the springs and the pins and everything. So now we have new pins. I'm just going to throw the one in just so that we can get this going, and then I have a spare one. I have a bunch of spare hardware and stuff just in case. Kind of sucks I had to spend 20 bucks literally just to do this, but I mean, you know, it is what it is. Alright. New pin installed, everything put back together, wheel spacer and wheel back on and torque. I got a little update for you guys on the O2 sensor saga. So essentially, as you guys know, we kept getting an engine light for our O2 sensor, and that's been the main thing keeping me from taking this thing and going and getting it inspected and getting that taken care of finally. Getting the state inspection done. In order to get the inspection done in the state, one thing that you have to do is make sure that your engine light is off on an OBD2 or 95, 96 plus car. Simple enough, right? Well, not in this case, because we kept getting code for our second O2 sensor, which is basically the emissions O2 sensor, the one that nobody cares about, but it's just for emissions and to make sure that the cat's working. I could care less about it, and I keep getting random codes, and I have been for a while. On that sensor, it would go off and, you know, stay off for a while and then come back on, and finally just not wanting to stay off long enough to get it inspected. So I was gonna pull it out and try to clean it up with some stuff like this carburetor choke cleaner, some good stuff. A lot of people said it's worth a shot to just kind of see if it'll get it to work. Sometimes that's all it takes. And if not, I was just gonna go buy a new sensor and throw it in. Even though I have a catless downpipe over here sitting there waiting to get installed, I want to be able to pass our test first before I go ahead and install that, and then worry about that later. But we're running out of options here because a big boo-boo happened. So essentially, I bought this little wrench here that goes into a normal socket. You can kind of see how it works here. It's got like a little space in it so that the wires can go through that, and then it can go on the end of the O2 sensor, and you can wrench it loose. The O2 sensor was very stuck on, very rusted, so I ended up using a lot of heat and a lot of PB blaster. I heated it up almost red hot. I didn't film any of this, by the way, because I just simply wanted to break it loose and then pick up the camera and show you guys that we got the sensor out, and then show you that, you know, talk about what I was gonna do and try to clean it and all that fun stuff. But of course, I happened to not film when this all happened. I heated it up. I heated the area up. It was nice and hot. I'd been using PB blaster for a while. I gave it one strong yeet, and the wrench just completely rounded off my O2 sensor. So now it is not coming off at all. It's completely rounded off. You can kind of see how the edges are screwed. I don't know how it happened. The wrench was on there nice and tight and perfectly fine. And when I just gave it one good heave with the wrench, it slipped. It was the weirdest thing. I don't know if it was technically the wrong size wrench, because it's a 7/8 wrench, but it's supposed to work with like 22 millimeter stuff, but it could be that this is 22 millimeter or vice versa, and there was just enough that when I reefed on it really hard, it somehow just slipped and broke loose because the sensor is corroded and pretty rusty. So I don't know, guys. All I know is that really sucks, and that kind of leaves us in a weird spot, but we're going to be talking more about the O2 sensor in the next episode, so you guys are going to have to wait to see the rest of what happens with this, but I'm pretty sure I know what I'm going to do. Now, a new issue that just popped up that I just noticed is that there's a whole puddle of ATF4 fluid right over here, and you can see where it's been like dripping down the tie rod. And I'm assuming that it's because one of our power steering lines is leaking. So I don't know if maybe our seal on our rack is like completely blown out, or if it's a line up above. I know we're getting a little bit of leaking of power steering over here, and I wondered if it was the sensor or something, or one of those lines on our rack. By the way, guys, this is a whole new remanufactured rack that I put in the car like a couple years ago. So it's not that old, but it's been leaking for a while, which really sucks because I just put it in to stop a leaking issue. It looks like the fluid is indeed coming out of the end of the boot there. I don't see anything else that could be leaking up in here. And it does look a little wet down in here, like on the power steering pump. You can kind of see. Could partly be from fluid being spilled when I dumped it in, but I haven't had to add fluid for a long time, so I wouldn't think that that would be the case. But it is indeed kind of wet down in there next to the power steering pump. I don't know how well you'll be able to see it on camera, but could be one of our lines up here. Our high pressure line is leaking something. Maybe the fitting isn't in there quite right, or it's not tightened down correctly. Also, I just happened to notice that our one power steering line over here for the cooler, this is actually a return line. I've had issues with that before. You can see I double clamped it. That actually came off one time and squirted power steering fluid everywhere. It's pretty funny. I think we might have an issue with that as well. I don't really know how to feel about any of this. We definitely got some issues power steering related going on though. Who knows, maybe I'll just end up ordering all new lines and a new rack for it and tearing the whole dang thing apart over a couple of days and redoing everything power steering related. Well, this is driving okay so far. Have you guys noticed that in the cold start clip, but it started idling really high out of nowhere. It almost like we sprung a big vacuum leak. I looked around at all of our, all the main vacuum hoses that are right there, and I didn't see anything. I just didn't see anything obvious as far as the vacuum leak is concerned. So I'm not really sure what's up with that, but I do know that we have gotten a code for the throttle position sensor before, and I'm wondering if that's acting up again. I didn't throw a code for it just now. I checked the codes, and it's still just the oxygen sensor code, so we shall see on that one. But as the car warmed up, it's okay now. I turned the wheel back and forth a bunch of times to see if I noticed any major power steering leak, and I didn't see anything, coming out anywhere in particular. It could be just the return line leaking a little bit, but the fact that it was leaking by the rack a little there and it looked like that's where it was coming from, it's got me a little bit confused. I'm not sure. We got some stuff to figure out on this thing still, and we're not gonna be passing inspection for a little bit longer, sadly, because of just these things that keep popping up. Now having to deal with an oxygen sensor that is completely rounded off, that is throwing a check engine light code that doesn't seem to be ground related for a change. It sucks. But we're gonna get it figured out and hopefully get it passed through ASAP. The pardon is over with the inspections. This whole summer they basically said, we're not going to enforce overdue inspections. So I haven't been worried about it until now, but I heard that the pardon was going to be ending, and sure enough it has. Just need to get those done so that I don't have to worry about it anymore. You guys know me, I haven't had the best luck with getting pulled over for stuff. So sadly, that's where we're at right now. We're still having issues with this car trying to get it passed through. The other car should pass just fine. I just haven't been able to get it in yet, but hopefully this week we'll be getting it in, getting it inspected, and I'll keep you guys up to date on all that stuff. But it looks like we're going to be having another episode. In the meantime, she is running and driving just fine. Our brakes are no longer making ungodly noises because we figured out our pin issue with our e-brake, and she's driving really good. But just because of this stuff, I am going to wait to really get on it and really drive this car hard. And I wanted to make a video right now when this is coming out of us finally, hooning around in the PT-GT with the new brakes and everything installed and with it running good. But I don't want to just keep flooring it and, have something lean out randomly or, have any weird issue like that happen, because we know that we're having an issue right now. So better to make sure she's running 100% to the best of my ability before I do something irresponsible like that. So once we get that fixed, we are going to be coming out with that video, which I cannot wait to film. But till then, I think this is where I'm going to have to leave you guys off with PT-GT. We'll have another episode out ASAP on the latest progress and getting this thing 100%. Let me know what you guys think down below, and yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I love you all so much. Thank you so much for the support. You rock. God bless, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.